Hello everyone, this is a quick note before the video starts, is that this is a re-upload of the same video I made a while back about the same patch. Just wanted to come back to editing and correct some statements I've made because some of you have pointed out that some of the things I mentioned there weren't exactly correct to the patch, so thank you for all those who pointed that out and enjoy the video. Hello everyone, hope you're having a great day because today is patch day, the only other day I love more than payday. And with patch 1.00.3 rolling out, there comes a lot of adjustments and balance changes that can definitely shake up a lot of loadout options. So with that in mind, welcome aboard the light of opportunity because new patches means new choices, and let's get right into it. Starting with the general changes, armors with armor rating above 100 now also reduce damage on headshots. This is very nice as it would really suck if a hunter jumped on you mid-jump and happened to also hit you and you take headshot damage. So having your armor also help reduce headshot damage is definitely a good quality of life change. Victory poses now only play for the extracted. That's just a fun little thing to insert there. And most important of all is that burning damage is reduced by 15%. So even though it is only a small percentage, the difference is definitely noticeable. And this change allows us to be able to react to fire a lot easier and live much longer. And the general changes ends there. Most of the changes you're going to hear are going to come to the primary, secondary, and support weapons. Starting with exploding crossbow, it has slightly smaller explosions, increased daggers, a bit of revisions to the ammo, revisions to control. And basically you now have to be a bit more precise with explosive crossbow, not relying on explosive AoE to deal the damage. The change on ammo count is a slight nerf, but I overall say that this was adjusted positively, especially with this dagger. The Quasar Cannon increased recharge time by 5 seconds. Now 5 seconds is a lot. I thought the original cooldown was pretty long, but this one makes it feel like it's almost forever. It is in my opinion still a strong stratagem, and I don't think 5 seconds is exactly enough for people to right away drop it. The defense missions might see less of it, as I'm aware of a tactic of people switching between 2 Quasar Cannons to deal with heavies and bot drops. A lot of people such as myself have kind of got the recharge time down to muscle memory, so having a near twice as long wait on the recharge time is definitely something that we'll feel. Small glitch I found is while testing this is that if you're holding the fire button before it recharges fully and continue to hold as it charges, it will not fire, so you would have to let go of your firing button and then try again before it goes. And honestly, even though it was a pretty hard nerf, I'm actually happy about this one. Almost every game I play with would maybe have half to 3/4 of the lobby running a Quasar Cannon, so anything that encourages variety always gets a vote from me. BR14 Adjudicator. Full auto is now the default fire mode, recoil is reduced, increased mags, and increased mags from resupply. It is also now just placed among the assault rifles, and I definitely felt like this weapon was more of an assault rifle than a marksman rifle to begin with. I almost always had it also on full auto, and even though the ammo changes and the recoil change was nice, I don't think this was the fix it needed to become a lot more stronger. I really think just increasing the flat damage would make this a more feasible and competitive weapon choice for your primaries. Despite that, I do love the weapon though, so any buff towards it definitely gets my vote. The laser cannon, slightly increased damage and slightly reduced damage versus large volume bodies. The increase of damage is nice, and I'm aware of the quote-unquote sleeper OP potential that the laser cannon has. As to what is being referred to as the large volume bodies, I'm assuming that to be Hulks, Battle Titans, tanks, and the like, but I haven't noticed anything distinguishingly different from just a couple of my tests. Punisher plasma, a bit of ammo adjustments for maximum mags and resupply mags, increased projectile speed but still keep the same range, decreased damage fall off on the explosion, and it's been moved now to the energy weapons category. Very interesting weapon, and I believe the projectile speed alone is enough to make the weapon more of a competitive choice with your other primaries. The ammo changes are unfortunate because it does eat through a lot of ammo, but you're now able to have your shots hit a lot more consistently, giving the projectile speed changes. A small thing to be aware of when using this is do not use the shield relay or the shield backpack. The Punisher plasma will detonate early on both and even hurt you if you're using the shield backpack while firing while the shield is active. The Arc 12 Blitzer, another very interesting weapon. Increased shots per minute from 30 to 45, and I have not used it a lot, but the increase of shots per minute from 30 to 45, meaning a 50% increase, is definitely a huge buff for the weapon. It's on my list of tests and I hope to get a lot more feel for it later down the line. The Eruptor, decreased number of maximum mags from 12 to 6, and explosion damage drops off slightly faster. It's a tough nerf but necessary. I definitely have never ran out of ammo when using the Eruptor, and now completely halving it to 6 mags will make people a lot more conscientious about where they're shooting their bullets. As for the explosion damage drop off, I haven't seen anything quite game changing. The last 16 Sickle, decreased amount of magazines from 6 down to 3. Not much to say here. The Sickle has always been a pretty solid weapon. I feel like even if you were to have the magazine count, the weapon won't see much of an effect as a whole. The last 5 Scythe, increased damage from 300 to 350 and decreased the max number of mags from 6 down to 4. Interesting buff on the site. Not much to comment on the max number of mags, but 50 damage definitely will make it seem a lot more appealing. The Railgun, increased armor penetration in both safe mode and unsafe mode, and stagger force slightly reduced. The Railgun is finally getting some love, and after using it for some time in my tests, I've yet to see the extent of the increased armor pen changes. It's still great for the bots as you're able to one-shot almost all of the common heavies, especially the Hulk, so it's definitely got that going for it still. The heavy machine gun, third-person crosshair enabled, and just finally, I have never been more happy to see a circle on my screen before. I think if there was a change to have, it was just this. I feel like this alone will make it a lot more easier to use. As for the Marksman Rifles, I'm going to group them together because they both receive a slight adjustment to damage. It's a nice change and it's better for them as they should be packing more of a punch compared to other rifles such as the assault rifles. As for the Liberators, both the base Liberator and concussive Liberator both received a slight damage buff, and the Jar 5 Dominator has had its damage decreased from 300 to 275. This is still pretty okay. It had its damage increased from 200 to 300 and I believe the previous patch, so just reducing it by 25 isn't the end of the world for it. Moving on to the pistols, we have the Redeemer with a slight increase in recoil. It's not much noticeable. I'd say you could still easily control the weapon while shooting it. For the Peacemaker, the pistol, increased damage from 60 to 75. I still like using the pistol. I think a small buff would make it a bit more appealing, but not so much when compared to the other secondaries. Next for the pistols here, we have the last Dagger, which is the laser pistol, and they've increased the damage here from 150 to 200. Honestly, I personally can't see much of a difference here. I do think that it's good that the last weapons are getting some love though, so I'm always rooting for that. And lastly, we have the Senator, which is increased damage from 150 to 175, and you now use a speed loader when emptying on an empty cylinder. So if the heavy machine gun made me cheer, this is the one that's going to make me cry for joy. It was always strange to me how we would have faster than light space travel, but I always had to reload my revolver bullet by bullet. The damage increase is just a cherry on top, but look at this. I mean, this is just, look at this. I had to wait almost 2 months for something like this to come out, but I'm glad I did. And this is enough to make the patch basically it for me. Some of the final support weapon changes here. We have the Spear, added reload stage, reload after the spent missile has been discarded. So what this means is that when you're reloading your Spear, it is now segmented into different stages. So if you were to complete one stage and then stop and then do the reload again, you'll most likely resume your reload already partway into it. So you can reload it faster if you happen to be interrupted midway. Machine Gun Sentry, increase health to match other sentries. That's good for the Machine Gun Sentry. I have not really seen anyone use a Machine Gun Sentry, so it's good for it, but I don't see it being any more used than the other ones. The Tesla Tower, increased health by 33%. This is beautiful for the Tesla Tower as compared to the other sentries, it would be something that's more on the front line than quite the back line. So being able to stand there more is definitely a big plus for the Tesla Tower. The Dog Rover has had a damage decrease by 30%, and I think this is fair. I don't know. It's kind of crossing a line between too much and just the right amount because the Dog Rover is overused, and given the fact that they're buffing the last side, if that is indeed the same side that's on the Guard Dog, which I think it is, then I think a damage reduction is definitely necessary. As for the other Guard Dog, it's had a slight increase in damage. I think this is good for this version of the Guard Dog because I do feel like it is very strong, and with a nerf to the Dog Rover, I feel like this can get a lot more time in the spotlight and people can really see the potential for this. Lastly, we have the Airburst rocket launcher, and this is a thing that has been responsible for almost 90% of your team kills the past day or two. They fixed it so that it will no longer detonate when shot near stratagems such as sentries and even other Helldivers, as well as reduce the proximity radius. So this was, I believe, just a fix to it, as the devs acknowledged that the way it was shipped out was not originally working correctly. So now the Airburst rocket will detonate a lot more predictably and is less likely to blow up in your face and kill you and your whole team. That pretty much wraps it up for the weapons. Now we're moving on to enemies. Bile and Nursing Spears have their move speed slightly reduced. Hulks now increase the force required for them to stagger. I think this one was really interesting. Something I would always like to use against the Hulks would be the Arc Thrower, because you could basically perma-stun a Hulk the whole time while you're killing it, but with this change, even with the Arc Thrower, it's still able to get shots off and react even when you're shooting it. Additionally, Hulks using the Flamethrower now deal 20% less direct damage. Devastator fire rate slightly increased, so this is only applying to the base Devastators, so not to the Rocket Devastator, not to the Heavy Devastator, just the regular one. Gunships move a lot faster, moving side to side, and gunship spawners now have a much lower cap on how many of the gunships they can have active at the same time. Fog Generators health and armor increased. I originally thought this was meant for the generators in those defense missions, but it seems like these are applying to those Spore Spears that spawn on the Terminid planets, so it looks like it may take a bit more to kill them. Scout Strider Riders are now less vulnerable to explosions, and this one was one of the bigger ones because it was really easy to kill a Scout Strider from the front if you were to use a weapon that has some sort of explosive property to it. So now you just can't have a straight head-on approach to the Scout Strider. You may have to get a little bit creative with it. Enemy patrols, this one I can see having a bit of controversy because they're basically saying here the less players there are in the game, the more patrols will spawn. So if you're playing with 4 players, which is the max lobby count, your experience will basically be the same as pre-patch. But if you're to do something like a solo hell dive, or maybe you just wanted to play with a couple of friends and then leave the lobby as private, so just you 2 or you 3, difficulty. Your games will now be considerably a lot more harder, but we'll see how this plays out. I just can't quite see the logic behind a change like this. Moving on to gameplay here, there's been some level generation improvements, so now locations are more evenly distributed around the map, so I expect to see a lot less of the gunship facilities spawning right next to each other and having to deal with 2 sets of gunships following us. Another thing to note here is that the Spread Democracy mission is now available on higher difficulties, and if you weren't aware, this is a mission exclusive to lower difficulty missions. We simply stand near where the stratagem is called and you just wait for the flag to raise, and I think this is one of the most simple but most fun missions out there, and being able to experience it with a lot of stuff happening around level 9 is something I'm very much looking forward to. When you're ready up in the Hell Pod, Helldivers now salute, so that's just a small quality of life change. It's very nice, it's very cute. They also stated here that they added ambiance to the Tremor Planetary Hazard to underline the severity. I've seen it, I've experienced it. I can't quite tell what exactly the difference is here. Lastly, shots that ricochet from heavy armor enemies will now properly hit the Helldiver who fired them. So this means that if you were to shoot a bullet and it hits a heavy armor enemy, it can reflect and hit you back, which can be very, dangerous to you. I tried this out with the ballistic shield and I was able to reflect the bullets I was shooting at it. There was also a number of fixes made in this patch. I've highlighted some of the most interesting ones here to me. They fixed the superior packing methodology ship upgrade as well as the blast absorption ship upgrade. On top of that, you can now report and block players, which is good because the players who are intentionally griefing or just trying to troll you, so being able to report them as well as block them makes for a very enjoyable online experience. So it's good that they finally added that. But that's it for this patch. There was a lot of changes on this patch, primarily on the ammo counts for these weapons. Some of the things that were highlighted to me here for those weapons were the machine gun, third-person reticle, and the Senator speed reloader finally being added to the game. Some of the enemy interactions are a lot more interesting, especially with the Scout Striders and the Hulks. I have to say that fire damage being lowered altogether is a plus, especially with the headshot damage now being reduced. Overall, I'm excited to see where we go from here. I definitely want to try out some of the more touched up weapons such as the Plasma Punisher and the Arc Blitzer. And that's it for me here today. I'm very excited to see what you all think about the patch, so if you can comment what your thoughts are as well as what you're excited and what you don't like about it, I'm open to hear it all. If you like what you heard, like what you see, please like and subscribe. I like to make a lot of Helldivers 2 content, so if that's something you're interested in, please stay tuned as I have a lot of things currently in the works. And yeah, thanks again for checking out the video and have a nice day.
Democracy has been well delivered. May your extraction be